talk about will be that. All right. This class is being recorded, so please be courteous, especially to me. I'm just having a little bit of fun. You guys will see that I like to have fun as part of this. Let's start with this concept of what you identified as, well, no, I want to start out with the certification. How many of you have taken an industry certification exam before? You can raise your hand in Zoom or turn your camera on or just speak up, whatever you're most comfortable with.
I've taken certifications for health-related industry things in the past. This is Jennifer Stewart, by the way. I can't figure out how to make it stop saying Amara's mom. That was for something for school. So, but this is Jennifer Stewart.
Jennifer Stewart. Okay, Jennifer, I'm going to turn on a feature. Now, if you click adjacent to your name, you're going to see the word more, and it should say rename. And that should allow you to rename your presence here in Zoom. Do you see it? Ah, perfect. See it. Perfect. Got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I may mispronounce your names. If I do, please charge it to my head, not my heart. Deborisa? Is that correct?
Deborisa.
Okay, you raised your hand. You've taken an industry certification as well?
I have for HR.
HR, okay. Term or?
I have my PHR.
Oh, PHR, okay. I didn't know if you got a term or, okay.
Yeah, that's a SHRM, yeah, SHRM certification. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So in regards to the certification exam, your preparation for the certification, couple of things you need to be aware of and what you need to be thinking about is it is a timed exam. So that means you have, and right now, because of the pandemic, there are two methodologies to taking the exam. One is you can actually take it at home, but it's a proctored exam where they are going to access your computer. You got to have a camera. They're going to actually have you take your camera, inspect your environment, your room. It's a complicated process. I do not recommend it for multiple reasons. One, the complexity of your computer. If something goes wrong with your computer in the middle of the exam, they're going to tell you you're responsible. And if it causes you to fail, it's going to be very challenging to retake that exam. The other constraint is unless you have a very good controlled home environment, if an individual comes into the room while you're taking the certification exam, they will fail you. So if you have a young one, maybe your child is 6 years old, and they simply walk into the room, because you're mandated to have a camera on during the exam. And if that child were to walk into the room while you were taking the certification exam, they won't care that that child is 5 years old and knows nothing about CompTIA. They're going to stop your exam and you would receive a failure notification at that point. And you can try to plead the case, but I've yet to hear of anybody being able to win that situation. So that's something to think about. What I highly recommend is, given the current climate, the testing centers are now opening back up. I've had multiple students in the last 5-6 weeks take them in various locations. So the testing centers are open back up. It relieves all of that stress about you and your computer, your environment, all of that is removed. And it gives you a nice, quiet, comfortable place to sit down and focus for the certification exam. The key is you'll be registering through Pearson VUE, and you'll get to select the date, the time, and the location. Mr. Young, do they have the vouchers already? Are you providing vouchers? Are they paying themselves? How's that structured?
Yeah, I have the vouchers.
Okay. And how will you work with them to schedule, or are they independently?
Well, I'm going to send it. They're going to get an email for the voucher, and they're going to be able to schedule it once we get through with this training.
Got it. Okay. So a contingency for you getting your voucher, by the way, these certification exams cost over $300. So this, in my opinion, as a professional, as an African-American in the field of IT, this is a huge opportunity that no one should let pass them by. That not only are you getting this opportunity for the review, but the certification itself is one of the most world recognized certifications. I used to sit on the board for CompTIA. CompTIA is a world renowned IT certification body. And one of the unique things about CompTIA is they are vendor neutral. What does that mean? Can anybody tell me? How about Jalen? Can you hear me, Jalen?
Yeah,
Yeah, can you tell me what it means when I say they're vendor neutral?
I actually don't know.
That's okay. How about Chris? Chris, can you help me out?
Hello. I don't know.
You don't know. That's okay. Jamil. Are you with me, Jamil?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Are you familiar with the term vendor neutral, what that means?
Not specifically, but I guess they have no specified vendor that they
That's right.
do business with.
You got it. Bingo. So unlike a lot of the IT certifications in the industry, you'll hear about some called Cisco, CCNA. You might hear about VMware, Microsoft, Google. They also have certifications, but all of their certifications are tied to them as an entity. So they are certifying that people are technically capable, but they're also marketing themselves, if you follow what I'm saying. CompTIA doesn't make a product, anything. So what makes them so reputable in the field of IT is the fact that they are vendor neutral. They are simply saying to the world, whoever has our CompTIA A+ certification has been certified as an expert in this field. And that certification can apply to HP, Dell, Linux, whoever makes those, not Linux, but Lenovo, whoever is making those laptops, computers, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I highly, highly encourage you guys to please consider taking advantage and getting this certification as quickly as possible. It is the #1 leading certification to careers in IT. The #1 job opportunity is what we call desktop technician. And the A+ certification is the one that applies to that. So some things to think about for the A+ certification, there are 2 parts to the exam. So you actually end up taking 2 exams. And can you guys see my desktop? I'm sharing a PowerPoint right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is about the first exam. You will hear it referred to as 1,220-1001. That's just a number that identifies it. But these are the baselines of what they're going to be expecting you to accomplish. So all of that training that you've been through is somehow related to one of these bullets. So if you think back over all the things you went through, you learned, the labs, everything you did was associated with one of these bullets, or it should have been. So they're going to be giving you questions where you need to demonstrate a baseline security skill set. What are some of the fundamental things you do about security? How do you configure various things such as operating systems, whether it's Windows or Macs, or anybody know what this 4 letters stands for?
Would that be security as a service?
That is correct. You'll hear the term SaaS model, SaaS, and that stands for security as a service. We'll talk about some of that later on. Some of the things this is a huge topic. This is probably the #1 topic when it comes to this certification. Troubleshooting and problem solving. This is not like a high school, grammar school course where they're going to give you a question and It's always going to be some multiple choice A, B, C, or D. That's part of it, but that's not what you need to be preparing for and thinking about. You need to be thinking about how to answer questions from an analytical standpoint. Now, what do I mean by that when I say analytical?
You have to analyze the problem that the supposed customer is experiencing, why they're experiencing it, and what the best way to overcome it, troubleshoot it.
You got it. Bingo. That's the key. So here's what makes some of these certification exams a little bit more challenging. You might be reading a question and analyzing the answers for which one is correct. And you might start to realize out of these 5 choices, A, B, C, D, and E, 3 of them seem to be correct. And the truth of the matter is all 3 of them probably are correct. But there will typically be something about the question that will make one of the answers more right than the other. That's where the analytical skill set comes in. Are you guys with me?
Yeah.
Director Young, is this part of it okay, or has this already been covered and I'm duplicating efforts? Help me out here. Okay, he may have stepped away. How about the rest of you guys? Is this stuff you guys have already covered?
No, the approach is new. This is good right here.
Okay, all right, good.
This is needed.
I apologize again. I don't know what you've done and have not done up to this point. So that's why I'm going to be asking you to engage with me as much as I can. So that troubleshooting aspect is essential, guys. And we're going to talk about different aspects of it. I'm going to have some samples for us. Support basic IT infrastructure networking. We're going to be talking about what equipment is utilized in the network. Where does it go? What is a router? What is an IP? We're going to focus on that subnetting piece of it as well. I'm going to make that our first item of the day. We're going to talk about configuring PCs. This is a big part. This is a big part of it. What does this 3-letter acronym stand for?
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. What are they talking about? What are Internet of Things?
I guess interaction brought on by the internet itself, or the advancements of user, I'm going to say it, user interface, well, user interfacing with other users.
Okay, true, all true.
Hardware, software.
Let me ask this a different way. What are IoT devices?
Smartphones, laptops, servers, printers.
All true, but there is a shift in technology today. The things you're referring to, laptop, servers, printers, those things have always been part of networking for the most part, right? But there's a shift in networking and in technology today, where this concept is that the things that we traditionally have connected to the network, computers and printers and servers, that there's a new wave of devices that are connecting to the internet. We're referring to them as IoTs. So now, what would you consider an IoT device to be?
Cloud be part of it?
Did you say cloud-based products?
Well, the cloud itself.
It's a part of it, but what are some of the devices? Let me ask you this. Have anyone heard the, Deborisa, did you have another question, or is that your hand up from before? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, my hand is still up. Sorry. No, I don't have a question.
Okay, cool. Have you guys heard the term smart home?
Smart home?
Yes.
Oh, electronically internet connected home. Appliances, refrigerator, stoves.
Now we're talking. See, that's the shift, that the technology has evolved to the point that we now have things connected to the internet that under normal conditions are not connected to the internet. So some of the things you just, such as stove, refrigerator, thermostats, cameras, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So that's where this term IoT comes into play. When they say IoT, it does not typically refer to the computer, the server, the printer, routers and switches. Those things have always been part of the network and the internet. But the shift is now the fact that we have these smart devices that are now starting to provide us access to the internet for those different reasons. The big one is smart TVs, which is going to be, in the long run, it's going to be huge in networking. Why? Why are smart TVs going to be so impactful to the business?
It's a main line of communication.
Okay, true. Let me ask you this. Prior to smart TVs, how did we watch TV?
Cable.
Cable. So, and what's the problem with cable?
Transmission.
In what way when you say transmission?
Well, I guess whether it's there's a word for it. I'm at a loss for it.
That's okay. This is not a technical question. How many of you have Comcast? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate Comcast, for the record. Oh, I shouldn't say that out loud. This is being recorded. But what's the problem with Comcast? Just from a fundamental perspective.
Would it be quality of reception or transmission signal, quality of the signal being transmitted?
Not so much. Actually, Comcast is one of the best television service providers that are available today.
Okay. Even in the rain?
Yeah, the rain doesn't affect Comcast. It shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more of a dish network issue. Now,
Right.
Dish has major problems with the rain, snow, because they use what we call antennas, and their antennas have what's called LOS, line of sight. So anything, a tree can grow leaves in the spring, and all of a sudden your dish service stops working, and they wouldn't be able to tell you why. They'll blame it on you. When the reality is the tree out front of your home grew leaves, and those leaves are now impeding the signal to your dish antenna. That's a different issue though.
I see.
Without getting too personal, let me ask you this. How much is your cable bill?
More than I would have wanted it to be.
Absolutely. I guarantee you, on average, if anyone has cable and they have internet service and cable television, you're averaging anywhere between $150 to $250 a month. That's the number one issue. And the problem is, for a person like me, I watch the History Channel, maybe TNT for the playoffs, give me, I don't watch a lot of television, but I only got 5 channels I watch. And the problem is those 5 channels, I can't just select those 5. I have to get a bundle. Well, IoT, Internet of Things, brings in smart televisions, which now brings into what we call IPTV. Have you guys heard that term before?
IT TV?
No, let me type it on the screen. IPTV.
Oh, internet provided TV.
That is correct. Which says I don't need Comcast. I just need an internet connection. And I can go to Hulu or Netflix. You notice that all of these streaming services are now starting to offer live television. The next phase of this will be what we now call bundling with a cable provider is you can tell an IPTV service provider, I only want these 5 channels, and you only pay for those 5 channels, which means there's a power struggle going on in the field of technology, where a cable company such as Comcast, which has dominated the cable market, now has a competitor where they're using the internet and internet capable devices to selectively offer services. So you need, for a certification perspective, we need to understand, how do we configure, how do we support computers, mobile devices such as cell phone, mobile phones that connect to the network, and we need to understand this IoT device hardware. That's what that is. Are we okay? We clear with that?
Right.
Everybody understand that IoT is a differentiator from the, notice PC is separate from IoT. By the way, this information comes directly from CompTIA's website. So you can go to CompTIA.org and pull this up. They tell you what is on the certification and what are the topics you need to be prepared for. So that's where this came from, directly from their website. They are the manufacturer of the certification exam. Implementing basic data backup recovery methods. That's something we need to talk about as well. Well, I'm assuming you've already talked about it. We just need to revisit it to make sure that you have clarity about it. Now, over the years, certification exams have gotten cyclical, meaning at one point in time, they were well respected. And then at a certain point in time, they weren't so much respected. Here's what happened. When the initial certification exams came out, because they were manufactured by the top vendors, Microsoft, Google, Cisco, CompTIA, etc., the industry loved them. Hiring managers wanted people who were certified. But over time, they started realizing that the people were memorizing things and passing the certification exam, but they really didn't know how to do anything. So that made the certification exam be watered down. They weren't well respected. Well, the pendulum has gone back the other way. The certifications at this point in time are well respected. Here's one of the key reasons why. Performance-based questions. That they have developed software so that now you have to perform an activity in order to get credit for some of the questions that will be asked of you. And that's a game changer, because now you can't just pick A, B, C, or D. You have to be able to click and do some things. And that's making the certification much more well respected.
Is that the same thing as interacting with a lab?
Kind of, yes. It's very similar to, so in you certify, you should have had access to some of the labs. And in those labs, you might have, click and plug in a cable or add a memory or plug in a CPU. That's what we're talking about. Okay. So this is kind of the high level of what they focused on in there. When it comes to the certification exam, again, I highly encourage you to select a testing location, go there and take the exam. Here's, this question says, well, what should I bring to the exam? Again, this is on CompTIA's website. You'll need 2 forms of identification, one with a picture. So a driver's license, a passport, state ID, some type of a government official ID. And then you will want to have a second ID of some sort, maybe a school ID, a work badge, credit card might be acceptable, something of that effect. So minimally, those 2 IDs. When you show up, you cannot have a watch on. They will not allow you to have like an Apple Watch, any kind of watch at all. You cannot have on a hoodie. Ladies cannot have, you can bring your purse in, but what they're going to do is give you a locker to secure any of these items that you can't take your cell phone in with you, not into the actual testing room. You can take it into the building, but they're going to give you a locker and a key and you're going to have to secure those items. You will not be allowed to sit down at the exam station with any of those items. Now, listen to this carefully as well. Once you sit down, they're going to log you in. Your certification exam is going to download to the computer that's in front of you. And then they're going to get, typically, they're going to give you like a whiteboard, a small portable whiteboard with a whiteboard marker. So in case you need to do some calculations or something like that. And then there's a short survey that starts before the actual exam starts. They might ask you, where did you study for the exam? And why are you taking this exam? Are you planning to go into the field of career of IT, or do you work in the field of IT and you're looking to enhance your career, etc.? Here's why this is important. That survey, remember, this is a timed certification exam. That survey is not part of the timing. So the actual clock is not ticking. Here's what I want you to do. Anybody ever heard the term brain dump?
No.
No. Okay.
Did you say brain dump?
Yes. It's a testing methodology. Here's what we're saying. I study for the certification exam. But there's a couple of things that I just, I struggle with. I can't remember the order of the 7 layers of the OSI model. The application, presentation, session, training. I can't quite remember it. But I've studied it, and I think I got it memorized enough to sit down. Once that survey starts, you can take that whiteboard marker and start to write things down to help you memorize certain things. So I call that a brain dump. Things you write down before you actually start the certification exam. Does everybody follow what I'm talking about? Does anybody follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's one of the tools that I recommend you do, is when that survey is going, answer first question, second question, and then stop and forget about the survey for a minute and do your brain dump on that whiteboard. Things you need to try to remember, shortcuts, acronyms, whatever would help you kind of prepare, and then go back and complete the survey. And once that survey completes, then the actual certification exam will start, and that's when that clock starts. Once that clock starts, once the first question appears, you're going to be answering the question, picking your answer, and I think it'll either say next or submit. I don't remember the exact, because I've taken so many different certification exams, I don't quite remember. But it'll either be next or submit. And once you do that, it goes from question 1 to question 2 to question 3. Look at what they're saying on this slide, that once you do that, you cannot skip a question or review previous answers, right? We all know how testing works. Most of us, if not every one of us, have taken a test at some point in time. So quite often we'll see a question, we're not quite sure about it, pick an answer, and we move on. And then 4 questions later, there's a different question, but related to the same question that I wasn't quite sure about. And now I go, oh yeah, now I know the answer. Well, unfortunately, they do not allow you to go back to that answer. They just changed this, by the way. You used to be able to go back and forth, but according to the latest website, I checked their website today for this information, they no longer allow you to go back to previous questions. So part of what your practice needs to be is, if there's a question that you're not quite sure about and it makes you think about something, whatever, that again, that's part of what that whiteboard and that marker are for. You can jot things down that might help you prepare for a question that you'll see in the future. So keep those tools, these little tricks in mind, okay? There can be a maximum of 90 questions. I've never heard of anyone receiving that many, but they do state it could be. Most cases I've seen is somewhere between 50 to 60 questions. The maximum time allotted will be 90 minutes. 90 minutes. So once you start the exam, there will be a little clock that's visible on the monitor, and that clock will be counting down. So you'll know where you're at.
So this is just the first exam, and the second exam is going to be the same in
Correct.
terms of time frame and number of questions.
That is correct. And that exam, again, is called the 220-1001 exam. CompTIA A+ 220-1001 exam. Any questions? We all good on this part? Okay. There is a concept called simulation or simulators. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
All right. This is a simulator question. Again, this is from CompTIA's website. You can go and look at this for yourself. You can actually interact with this simulator. This is an example that they give you visibility to. So what I want you to do is understand how this is made up. The test question is over here on the left side. And they give you a scenario and they say, for example, after experiencing an attack on its server, company A hired a cybersecurity analyst to configure a DMZ and increase security measures. Shortly after the network was reconfigured, an assistant on the second floor reported that one of the executives could not access the internet. More specifically, they can't get to the website CompTIA.org. However, he said that he can send internal emails, use the internet, print to local computers, et cetera, et cetera. So there's your scenario. There's the question. Now here's the instructions. Now they tell you, check the IP address, use the information to ensure that the ACL is properly configured, et cetera, et cetera. So now you got to start navigating this environment, these pieces of equipment, and doing the things that are in the instruction. You guys with me?
Yeah.
So this is a multi-facet question because they're doing multiple things. First of all, it's analytical. Notice there is no A, B, C, D. It's analytical. Think about the scenario, figure out what's wrong. But they're also checking to see, do you know how to do these things that you learned in class? Do you know how to check the IP address? Do you know how to look at the access control list, et cetera, et cetera? Do you even know which one of these devices has that information? For example, the router is one that's controlling the access list. Checking the IP addresses is going to be applying to the workstations, et cetera, et cetera. That's a simple. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Was there a question?
No, I'm seeing this bit for the first time.
Okay. Yeah. So don't let this intimidate you, but let this be a warning to how to prepare for the certification exam. This should relate to the labs that you've done in UCertify. Does it? Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. All right. So this is an example of that. Let me see if I still have this open. I do. Okay. Yeah. Are you guys seeing the simulation now?
Yes.
All right, this is the actual simulation from CompTIA. There's the same scenario, the question, everything that we just talked about. Now, see this button where I can click show question? that removes the question so I can see the entire topology. When that question is open, some people make a mistake and think they're looking at the entire topology here. You're not. You got to be careful about that, right? When I move my mouse around this screen, notice how some items light up when my cursor hits it. For example, the router. For example, the workstation, workstation 2. But when I hover over the switch, it doesn't light up. There's no blue square around it. That means I have no access to this. But when I click on a workstation, if I click it, it opens up this command prompt. Now, everybody should be familiar with the command prompt. This is the equivalent of going into Windows and typing CMD. So now I'm at the command prompt of this computer, and now they're expecting me to do the things that are listed in the instructions. You with me?
Yeah.
How do you verify the IP address of a computer?
Was it IP config?
Yes. So now I've accomplished at least part of this lab or exercise because I've typed the command IP config on workstation number 1. I've validated the IP address. I can see what the subnet mask is. I can see the default gateway. Bingo, that's done. So now I would repeat and keep going and doing that on the various devices as they've instructed me to. Now I'm validating that IP address. And I can look at them, compare them. This one's a .82, this one's a .68. They both point to a gateway of .65, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody get the picture?
Yeah.
All right, that's a simulation that will be part of the exams. Is that a sigh of relief? Is that a question?
No, I just wish I could have seen simulations like that more often, a lot sooner.
Yeah, yeah, that's all I can say. Let me, I'm gonna switch some gears here and see if we can start, because I think that was Kenneth that said one of the more challenging topics you encountered was the subnetting, if I remember correctly. Was that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. How am I doing so far? Everybody's good? Have I put you to sleep, or where we at?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just listening.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. All right. I'm going to switch gears and we're going to have a discussion about IP addressing. Seems like that's a topic of interest. And whenever can you guys see my screen? It should look like a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So there's this concept of what we call IP addressing. An IP address, I'm just going to write one up here, for example. 192.168.10.4. And again, you guys got to work with me because I don't know what you don't know. So I'm just generally addressing this concept of IP addressing and subnetting for you. All right. So this IP address originally would have been classified as something called a Class C address, Class C, meaning that the industry, actually it's a governing body called IANA, they came up with the concept of IP addressing. Let me back up more fundamentally. What is an IP address?
I think there's two ways to answer it.
Okay, give me one.
If I want to go www.gunsareus, that's one way. That's an address, but the IP address or subnet address would be the 192.168.10.4.
Okay,
Close with no cigar.
kinda, sorta.
But the class that it's in would be
Forget the class. I just want, if your 7-year-old nephew heard you talk about IP addressing and your 7-year-old nephew said, what is an IP address? How would you explain it in the most rudimentary answer? What is an IP address?
Okay, so I still need a lot of help with the definitions of some of these things because I don't speak this jargon at all. But
That's okay.
I would almost say it's kind of like your signature in the internet. So, like when you're out on the internet, this is a way that people can identify you as being you or where information came from, like across, a cloud or whatever.
That's actually a very good answer. It's a signature. That is a very good answer. Think of it like this. Our home, how do you identify where you live? How do we identify where we live?
By your address.
By your address. Okay, perfect. What are the things that make up our home addresses?
numbers and street names.
Street names, number of the house, what else?
Zip code. Zip code.
Zip codes. Okay, perfect. An IP address is very similar to that. An IP address will always be accompanied by another number, and I'm going to write one underneath here. 255.0. So now we've got two pieces of information on the screen. The top number is the actual, and I'm going to even make this more specific. Clean that up a little bit. This top one is what we know as an IPv4 address. 4 means version 4, because there are other versions, by the way. Right? So this is an IPv4 address we see at the top. This number at the bottom is referred to as the subnet mask. Subnet mask. Now it's going to take us a little time to put this whole puzzle together. But what I want you to take away is the fact that this top number is kind of like the house number. This bottom number is more like what street do we live on? So that when we think of it from a perspective, if this were a street, and if I said this was Martin Luther King Boulevard, and on this street were a number of houses, and we would identify each house by a different number. Well, when you look at the subnet mask and you compare it to the IP address, a critical part of this is to, when you're looking at the subnet mask, let me ask you this. When you look at this subnet mask, this bottom number, what do you notice? Let's use a Sesame Street term. Which one of these is not like the other?
The 0.
The 0. So now when we're looking at this, we see that this 0 is unlike the other. We'll learn why later. But what that really tells us is when we look at the IP address, the first 3 octets, the first 3 numbers are equivalent to the street. So this network, we call it a network. So the network identity is 192.168.10. Now I'm gonna put a period here and I'm just gonna put a question mark for the 4th octet. Now you hear me using this term called octet. Anybody know what that means? No.
It's a breakdown of the numbers, isn't it?
Say that again.
I'm saying it's a breakdown of each individual set of numbers.
Yes. Do you know what those numbers are or how do we get them?
They're ones and zeros in certain places.
Bingo. Okay. Any excuse me, any MMA fans in here? Anybody watch MMA fighting? No.
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay. What do they fight in?
Rounds.
Well,
An
that's
octagon,
an octagon. Why is it called an octagon?
because it got 8 sides.
Aha, it's got 8 sides. Each one of these fields, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Each one of them is referred to as an octet, O-C-T-E-T. That means this number, for example, the number 4, is being made up from 8 bits. So each one of these fields, 1, 2, 3, and 4, is made up of 8 bits. A bit is either a 0 or 1, which means that value is either turned on or off. So the bit positional value, let's look at it. I know what'll work. How much money is that?
$100.
$100. Boy, we can count some money. What makes this $100?
100 pennies.
Pennies?
100 pennies. So many dimes, 4
Yeah, okay.
quarters.
Let's look at a different perspective. Aren't these numbers in certain positions?
Right.
Isn't this first number in the hundreds?
Right.
They have different values.
Yeah, this one's in the 10s, this one in the 1s. So whatever number, so if I said we got this much money and I put a 199, how much money we got?
$199.
$199. If I gave you one more dollar, how much money would we have?
200.
200, right? Now watch this. We increment the 200s position, but we reset the 10s and the 1s. They start over. You with me so far?
Yeah.
So that's base 10 numbering, right? We learned that in grammar school. Well, this whole IP addressing is the exact same model. It's exactly the same, except for we're dealing with larger bit positions. So there are 8 bit positions in each octet, and there are 4 octets in an IP address. So I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's put this one over here. 8. So there are 8 bit positions. Their bit positional values are 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. And now we got binary, meaning it's either a 1 or a 0. If it's a 1, let me straighten this out. If it's a 1, that means it's turned on and we include it. We count that value. If it's a 0, it's turned off. So let's take this very first octet right here, which has the value of 4 in it. So now when I'm looking at the 8 bits for that first octet, I can see this bit position is number 4, so it needs to be on. That means everything else is turned off. So in binary, 8 bits, 000000100 is equivalent of the number 4. Binary zeros and ones is what computers and printers and networking equipment understand. But because we are humans and we don't process numbers as well, we look at it in dotted decimal, and that's why we see the number 4. But our computers would see this number 4 as 0000100. Does everybody understand? Y'all got to talk to me. I don't see any faces. So yes, no, maybe.
Yeah,
It's just a lot to digest for me.
It's a lot. Okay. That's okay. Just make sure to take advantage. Ask questions.
so it's the placement value that makes it.
That is correct. What you need to know is those bit positional values, 128, 64, 32, what's the pattern? When we look at these values from left to right, what's the pattern? Half. If you can simply remember the first value is 128, when you go from left to right, everything from there is being cut in half.
Oh yeah, divide. Yeah.
So there are 8 bits in each octet. Now, how was this, Kenneth, if you don't mind me asking, because you brought this topic up, subnetting and IP addressing. Was this in the U certified material? Was there a lab? What brought this on?
You know, I'm trying to recall whether it was a video
Okay.
of Mike or it was something in the U certified that mentioned it.
Okay, got it.
Need to
Okay.
be forthcoming. I've seen it a bit in the CCNA class.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's in the CCNA class. You gotta be very proficient in it. This is half of the class, knowing how to do this. From an A+ perspective, it's critical that we understand just about what we're talking about here today. Understanding what an IP address is, understanding what is a subnet mask, understanding that there are 8 bits and etc. Because we just did a lab where that simulation told us to go verify the IP address. Well, it's great that we know what the command IP config does, but it's equally important to understand, well, what am I looking at? Right? So
Right.
Let's take this to the next step, because this is where troubleshooting comes in. So that if you were to see this number, 192.168.20.5, and I told you this was the address of this computer or house, and we take our original address and said this was the address configured to this computer or house. Here's the trouble. Here's my question to you. Can these two houses, computers, communicate to each other? So you got a 50-50 shot at getting this correct, but understand the moment you answer, my next question is going to be why or why not? How about Charles? Are you with me, Charles?
Hello?
Hello. Are you able to answer my question?
I couldn't really hear you.
The question is, we've got 2 addresses on the screen. This one up here, 192.168.10.4. And we've got this second address, 192.168.20.5. My question is, if those 2 addresses were configured on 2 computers, would they be able to communicate to each other?
Yes,
Why do you say yes?
because of the numbers in the network, right? The numbers in the network are the same.
Okay, which parts of the address are the network?
The first 6.
Aha, okay. Good answer, but it's wrong.
Okay.
Now, so everybody pay attention. Remember this, remember the subnet mask?
Yeah.
And remember I said that the subnet mask is equivalent of the street. So when we're looking at the subnet mask, we have to see which parts of the subnet mask match. So we can see the first octet is 255, the second octet is 258, the third octet is all 255. So that means the first 3 octets must match in order for 2 devices to be on the same network, AKA the same street. So I pose the same question again. If we've got 2 computers, one of the addresses is 192.168.10. Uh-oh, that's a 10, guys. 10.4, and the other one is this address. Can they communicate to each other? Are they on the same street?
Well, given what you said, because of subnet mask, the first 3 octets, is it,
Yes, sir.
are similar in spite of the difference of the last
Octet.
number. Yeah, the last octet. The first 3 are similar, so they should be able to communicate based on.
I didn't say similar. I'm saying that they must match because of this.
That's right. That's right.
So can the 2 computers communicate to each other? Yes or no?
Oh, no.
No, they cannot,
No.
Why not, Jennifer?
because the numbers at the end are different.
Yeah, the .10 is different than the .20.
Okay, the number
And-
that
And the 4 and the 5 are different.
okay, good points. Now let me clarify. The subnet mask, let me clean this up a little bit. Let me clean this up a little bit. All right, here we go. Let me write this again. 192.168.10.4. Subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Now, we're assuming this subnet mask applies to this address and this address, both of them. All right. Now, what I said was, when we see the subnet mask, that means wherever those 3 matching octets at, when we look at the IP address, they must match exactly. So therefore, the first 3 octets of this IP address are equivalent to a street, or what we call the network. Okay?
Okay.
We'll worry about the 4th octet later. So now here's the second address over here, 192.168.20.5. Do the 3 octets match identically?
No.
No. Therefore, this one is a different network because the number 20 is different than 10. And devices, computers that are on different networks cannot directly communicate to each other. What we're basically saying is there's another street up here, and the address on this street is 192.168.20. And that's a different street than 192.168.10. So therefore, they're not on the same street. They do not get to communicate to each other. This number at the end, 4 and 5, those are basically like the house numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc., etc., etc. So you could have a house on this street that might be 192.168.20.4, but down here we might have one that's 10.4. But you can never ever have two IP addresses on the same network be the same. I couldn't have this house be number 4 and this house be number 4 and both of them be 192.168.10. That's duplicate addresses. Which house do we send the traffic to? We don't know. It'll fail. Does everybody understand?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. So this is IP addressing and the fact that it comes with a subnet mask. Subnet mask. Ask me some questions.
The subnet mask is derived from the address up top, the octets up top.
Good question. The subnet mask is really derived from the network administrator.
Oh,
This number gets selected by the admin. We identify that. Now, here's why. This part, as I said before, is like the network, the street. This last octet, don't look at that as a number. Remember, how many bits did I say are in each octet? How many bits total?
8.
8. Now we're going to do some little math. I apologize if you're not a math person, but that's part of the world we live in. That means there are 8 bits. I already taught you what are the bit positional values. What did I say the bit positional values were from left to right?
They start at 128, go down by half.
That's right. We start out at 128 and it goes down by half. 64,
That's right.
2, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. So now watch this, guys. That means all of these bits could be turned off. And if we do turn them off, what value would that come up with? That's 0, right? There's nothing turned on.
Right, right.
That would equal 0. But if I turn on the first bit only, what value do I have now?
8.
No, what bit position is turned on?
Well, 1.
1. If I turn only this bit on, but leave everything else off, what value do I have now?
2.
2. If I said this bit and this bit is on, but the other bits are all turned off, what value do I have now?
11.
What position are they in?
I see. I see.
That's not the number 11. That's
No,
saying
not.
this position.
3.
There we go. I heard somebody say 3.
Yeah.
So does everybody start to see the pattern? I can take these bit positional values and start to turn each one of them on or off. And I can come up with a number as low as 0. And I'm just going to tell you, if I turn all 8 bits on, and if you were to do the math and add 128 plus 64 plus 32 plus 16 plus 8, 4, 2, and 1, you're going to come up with this value, 255.
Whoa.
So that means on the street that's called 192.168.10, there could be 256 houses. The lowest value being 0, the highest value being 256. Now this is tricky, guys, because I said 256. Now your mind is going to want to say 255, but you got to remember the number 0 is a valid number. But in our normal mathematical calculation, because we like money, 0 means you broke and ain't got none. So we don't think of 0 as having anything. But in mathematical calculations, 0 is a valid number. So with a range from 0 to 255, that's a total of 256 numbers. Does everybody see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So now we could have houses, or better yet, computers on the network from 0 all the way up to 255. So again, the subnet mask tells us which part of the IP address is the network or the street. Whichever part of the subnet mask is not 255, that's the part that says, oh, those are the individual devices on that network. Questions?
Could you repeat that last statement?
Sure. The subnet mask, tells us which part of the IP address, in this case, the first 3 octets, is the network portion, or what we call the street. The subnet mask identifies which part of the IP address is the network portion. Whichever part is not in the network, and in this case, the 4th octet, that's what we call host portion, which means those are the individual devices that are on the network, the computers, the printers, the cameras, the IoT devices, et cetera, et cetera. So in this case, the first 3 octets are all 255 in the subnet mask. Therefore, that makes that the network portion. The last octet is what we call the host, which means these are the individual devices on my network. I was using the street analogy to help us correlate it to the street versus the house address. You would never have 2 houses on the same street with the same house number. Would you agree?
Agreed.
Mailman or mailwoman gonna be super confused. You ain't gonna never get your mail. It'll be at your neighbor's house. So every house on a street, every device on a network must have a unique IP address. You never duplicate the IP address between 2 devices. That's a troubleshooting skill set we must have. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So are you saying that all you can have is a total of 10 devices to split your network connection? Because the last number only goes from 0 to 9. So each, I don't know if you understand. I don't even know if I'm wording it right.
I think I understand your question. And the answer is no. In this example, now you got to remember, I said that this subnet mask came from the administrator. The administrator chose this subnet mask. In this example, the administrator made the first 3 octets 255, 255, 255, but the 4th octet is a 0. Now, that means this gives us these 8 bits. 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. So we get to toggle these 8 bits any way we want. And that range goes from 0 all the way down to 255. So as a result, on this network, there are a total of 256 available addresses. Was that Jalen or Jamil who asked that question?
Yeah, I'm Jamil, but yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. So in this example, we've got this whole 4th octet. And since there are 8 bits in that octet, I have 0 to 255. For total number of addresses. Okay. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Do you guys ever get mail at your home that says to the resident of?
Yeah,
What do we call that?
junk mail.
That's exactly right. I call it junk mail. Now, when it comes to this concept of IP addressing, the way this works is the last address on the network, and in our case, 255, should never get assigned to a computer because we reserve this address. So you see this number right here, 255. We would never assign that to a computer on the network because this is a special address and it's reserved for this purpose, this word. Broadcast. Meaning, if I ever need to send information to everybody on the network, every single device, I would send it to that address and it would go to everybody. That's called the broadcast address. That's equivalent of what I call junk mail. When these different entities, different companies find a way to just broadcast and send their junk mail to everybody. So we never assign the last address to a device, computer, printer, camera, etc. The first address, which for us is 0, we don't assign that to anybody either, because we use that to identify the actual network. Let me redo this example for you. We had an address of 192.1. Darn. 192.168.10, and I'm just going to put .0. Okay. Since the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, what part of this IPv4 address is the network portion? Somebody tell me.
$192.
Just the number 192?
Oh, wouldn't it-
192, 168, and 10.
That is correct. It's all 3 of these. It's 192, 168, and the number 10. The reason it's 192, 168, and the number 10 is because in the subnet mask, we have these 3 255s, which tells us the first 3 octets. Now,
That's what makes the network address, does it not, by definition?
Correct. Yes, it is. It's because of these 255 that by definition makes that the network portion. Now, this last octet is made up of 8 bits. 3, starts out at 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. And we can toggle these bits and come up with various values. 0. We turn this bit on, we'll get 1. If we turn this bit on only, we'll get 2. If we turn this bit and this bit on, we'll get 3. If we would turn on this bit, but turn everything else off, we'll get to number 4. And eventually, if we turn on all 8 bits, 5, 6, 7, 8. If all 8 bits position were turned on, the highest number we can come up with is 255. It's just a mathematical calculation. 128 plus 64, go away. 128 plus 64 plus 32 plus 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1 will equal 255. So that's the total number. The total number of addresses on this network is 256 because we're looking at a range from 0 to 255. But the last address is reserved. What did I say this is reserved for?
Not junk.
Junk mail. It's called a broadcast address. So we never assign this to a computer. The first address is also reserved. It's how we identify the network. It's the network address. So 192.168.10.0 is the complete network address.
And the 255 is the subnet network address?
Not network address. It's just called the subnet mask. It's called the subnet mask. The broadcast address is the last address. So let me write the whole thing out. So the broadcast address for this network would be 192.168.10.255 because that's the last address on the network. Is everybody with me? So now, when I want to configure the devices, which is part of troubleshooting in A+, the first usable address will be 192.168.10.1, 10.2.3, all the way up till I get to 254. Does everybody see the pattern? The first address was reserved for the network. The last address is the broadcast. Everything in between are what we configure our computers and cameras and printers and everything with. Talk to me. Questions, comments? We all good?
The word broadcast, is it the equivalent of we're sending a communication signal?
Yes, but it doesn't have, every time we send anything, email, website, YouTube, any of that, we're sending communication. So it's not specific to sending communication. The key about the word broadcast is we're sending it to everybody.
Junk mail.
Junk mail, that's right. When we're thinking of this thing, right, we will have like a switch that has multiple ports and we connect our computers. Here's computer A plugged into port number 1. Here's computer B connected to port number 2. Here's computer C maybe plugged into port number 3. So because these 3 computers are now connected to this device we're calling a switch, now we just configure the computers with IP addresses. You with me?
Yeah.
So now if I configure computer A to be 192.168.10.1, and I make computer B 10.2, and I go to computer C and I fat finger it and I make a mistake and make it 20.3. Computer A and B will be able to ping each other. Y'all know about ping? You should have learned about ping.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So computer A and B will be able to ping each other. They'll be able to transmit data to each other. But when you try to ping C, it's going to fail. Who can tell me why?
It's on another network.
Bingo. Because of this number 20 being in the 3rd octet, it's on a different network, and 2 computers on a different network cannot communicate to each other through a switch. It
Right.
fails. That's troubleshooting. So that's why when we were looking at that simulation, did I close it? I think I'm close. Oh no, here it is. When we were looking at this simulation, and remember, I clicked on workstation 1 and we typed the command ipconfig. Part of what you're troubleshooting is you're looking at the IP address. You're looking at the subnet mask. We'll talk about the gateway later. But if I were looking at, if the scenario said these 2 computers or devices couldn't communicate to each other, part of what I want to look at is, are their subnet masks the same, identical? And if they are, then they should be on the same network. And then if they are, then I should be able to communicate between the 2 of them. And one of the tools we have available is the ping, ping 192.168.0.82. So this workstation 1, I'm putting in the IP address of workstation 2 to see if I can ping it. And sure enough, I get this reply that confirms I can ping it. Because if I couldn't ping it, I'm gonna put a fake number in here, 88. Oh, that's something that they're actually using. Let's go with 199. Yeah, see, when there's an invalid ad or device or address, or there's no device configured, you get this response that says timed out, meaning I can't communicate to that device. Is this helpful?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Now we got about 30 minutes left. So I wanted to address, Kenneth gave us the challenging topic of subnetting, and we can revisit that in another class as well. But I want to pause from that and just make sure that this is beneficial, that you're getting some out of it, and open the floor to see if there are any additional questions.
You know, I do think it's beneficial. I mean, if you have a breakdown, like how much of the test will be hardware, how much of the test will be software, how much of the test is going to be, I mean, I guess all that is going to encompass.
Yeah,
It'd be helpful.
yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that because they did an update. I'm gonna take a look and see. They may not tell us like how much is what topic. I don't know that they tell us. I will take a look at that and clarify in our next meeting with them.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome. What other questions do you have? No other questions?
I'm just wondering how much of the test is going to, and maybe this is what the prior gentleman was talking about, how much of it is going to be command line as opposed to random picks of A, B, C, D, E.
Multiple choice. Yeah, they don't, as a certified CompTIA instructor, they don't tell us.
Okay.
And I don't think, and I'm looking at their website now, I don't think they publish that that level of details. Here, let me show you guys what I'm looking at. Share screen 2. Can you guys see the website here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on CompTIA's website. And so this is some of the details that they give out. You can see they say, hey, it includes performance-based questions. That's that scenario that I guys showed you. It tells you there are 2 separate exams, 90 minutes each. It's an entry-level certification. Prerequisites, they're saying you don't necessarily need to know anything specific. But when I start looking at the exam prep and things of that sort, there's no breakdown of, you know, they give you all of this stuff, but there's nothing in here saying exactly like how many multiple choice questions, or they don't publish that from what I'm seeing here. And that would make sense too, because the other thing is they use a pool of questions. So they might have a database with 1,000 questions in it, and you schedule the exam and take it tomorrow, and you're going to get 50 questions from that pool of 1,000. And then someone else takes it a week later. They will get, the possibility is they're going to get a different pool of 50 questions. And I don't think it necessarily says how many multiple choice, how many simulators, things of that sort. But I can tell you from the history of me teaching this and being around it and hearing feedback from students and etc., the vast majority of it is multiple choice. But you will get some scenario-based questions where you got to figure out and do some things. So you definitely need to prepare. But the vast majority of it is multiple choice.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? All right. Since you don't have any additional questions, I have some additional questions. And I'm going to use questions to help us kind of get in the mindset of preparing. So I just need you guys to stay engaged and bear with me for about 15 more minutes. All right. Here is a question. It says mobile devices. You recently upgraded the processor in your laptop computer to a faster processor. The computer runs, but after you use it for several minutes, it shuts down unexpectedly. Now it says which of the following, but there's nothing there. I'm asking you, what do you think are some of the troubleshooting steps you should take?
Would it be the BIOS?
Well, you gotta
First step.
what What do you do? What are you saying? What is the step? BIOS what?
Well, getting the computer to recognize the processor, the new processor.
So what do you do to the BIOS? What are you saying?
Oh,
Flash it.
I need an action. What do I do?
I don't feel like I know enough to answer that. I think I need you to kind of like tell me what's happening.
I think you will flash the BIOS.
Okay, there's one answer, flash the BIOS. Somebody said flash the BIOS. These are the type of questions you're going to be faced with, analytical questions. What steps would you take if the computer you just upgraded a processor unexpectedly shuts down?
oh, probably check the thermal paste also.
Okay. Check the thermal casing. Okay. We're starting to get there. Let me see if I can make this a little easier. Oops, hold up. Here are some choices for you to choose from.
I think you make sure the case fans are plugged in.
Yeah, because overheating can cause it to shut down.
Okay, make sure the case fans are plugged in. Sounds good. Any other choices? How many people agree with make sure the case fans are plugged in?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 people. How about, I see a name here, Coffee? Kofi? Kenneth, you got your hand raised? You got a comment or an answer? Or you just agreeing?
I'm just agreeing. Check the case fans are plugged in, thermal paste.
Let me ask another question here. Let's look at these one by one. Why wouldn't you choose the first answer? Or would you choose the first answer? Charge the battery and then run the laptop from the battery. Why would you or would you not choose that?
Doesn't the CMOS, oh, no.
Okay, let's go to the second one. Why would you not test the memory for errors? Okay, this ain't working the way I thought it was. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to eliminate if any of these are incorrect. There are some words in the question that give us hints about it. First of all, what got upgraded?
Processor,
Why was it upgraded?
speed.
Speed. So the assumption is the computer worked just fine. We just needed to speed it up for processing capability. So testing the memory and the battery do not seem like likely causes. You follow me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is an inverter?
Inverter relates to the screen. It makes no sense to test the screen because it's not messed up.
Right.
Yeah.
So by process of elimination, that leaves one answer.
Yeah, make sure the fans are cooling the process.
Make sure the fans are cooling. And somebody even made the comment. That's typically, the result of an overheating. You'll see a computer shut down in a heartbeat when it overheats like that. So get in the concept of when you're looking at questions, don't always just assume, well, I need to find the right answer. That is correct. But a big part of that is eliminating the wrong answers. Let's look at another question. Y'all ready? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
A salesperson typically carries a laptop computer to several off-site customer meetings each day, but the person needs the flexibility to quickly attach peripheral and charge the laptop battery when they're in their office. Now it says which of the following, but I'm just asking you, what do you think this person needs to accomplish that task?
Some sort of docking station.
All right. Docking station is one of the choices. Do any of the other options seem viable?
KMV.
KVM, you want to get a KVM?
Oh, KVM, sorry.
Yeah, I'd say KVM switch.
Okay.
Station.
Any other ones? Okay, let's walk through these one at a time. What is a docking station?
Allows you to attach different peripherals.
Okay.
It also allows to charge.
Also charges a battery. Okay. What is a KVM? What's the purpose of a KVM?
You access monitors from one keyboard, various monitors.
Perfect. Now read the question and tell me, how does the KVM relate to the question?
Well, he needs to quickly attach other peripherals and charge the laptop battery while at their office desk. KVM switch will provide that.
Okay. Read the first part of the question.
Typically carries a laptop computer to several off-site customer meetings each day.
So this is a person that travels a lot. So I'm not saying you're wrong. That is definitely the purpose of a KVM, to connect external monitors and multiple monitors and keyboards and things of that sort. But when you look at it in the context of the question, the peripheral devices that they're talking about is more than likely external things like disk drive, monitor, things of that sort. Unless the KVM is focused on taking a single contact point and connecting it to multiple. You even said it, being able to take a single keyboard, but have that single keyboard relate to multiple computers. Am I correct? Is that what a KVM's role is?
Yes.
Yes.
So when you analyze the question and in correlation to what the purpose of the KVM, hopefully we see the KVM doesn't make sense in this scenario. No, yes, maybe a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. What is a USB to RJ45 dongle?
That's an interface permission.
It's a cable with an adapter on it. Has very little to do with the scenario. USB 3.0 hub. Now, remember, I told you guys, quite often when we analyze questions, more than one answer could be correct. Like the KVM, it could be correct, but we got to look at it in the context of the question. A USB hub would allow a laptop connectivity to external devices. But the key is they want it to connect to peripheral and charge the laptop battery. Can a KVM charge the battery?
No.
Can a USB RJ45 dongle charge the battery?
No.
Can a USB 3.0 hub charge the laptop battery? No. So by simple process of elimination, the only accurate answer here is docking station.
Yeah.
Is this helpful, guys? Or are we wasting time? Because trust me, none of us want to waste time.
No, this is helpful.
Okay. Any questions about this scenario?
No.
All right, we still got a couple more minutes. What time is it, guys? 7:47. We got 13 minutes. Let's do a couple more here. What wireless technology does a device use haptic confirmation for sharing data wirelessly? You were muffled. Say that again.
Bluetooth.
Bluetooth.
Bluetooth. Interesting. Bluetooth is an option. There are 3 others. Are you sticking with Bluetooth? What's the key word in the sentence?
Haptic, what does it mean?
Exactly. That's where it makes it interesting. Is what does that word mean? That's part of that. Should have been part of your material that you read.
Now that's the first time we introduced to that term.
Okay.
Or first time I'm introduced to it, I should say.
Okay. I just opened up Google and typed in the word haptic confirmation. And here's the response. Somebody read that out loud for me if you don't mind. Help me out.
Devices use haptic confirmation for sharing data wirelessly. Infrared devices are paired using a code for sharing data wirelessly. Bluetooth devices are placed in close proximity within the line of sight for sharing this wirelessly.
Aha. Let's go back to the question.
Keyword is wirelessly.
Haptic.
Yeah.
So what answer do you guys choose? You sticking with Bluetooth?
You want to see that definition again? Haptic. Infrared.
Oh, because they talked about Bluetooth and infrared.
And I'm gonna say pick one. There's a statement in one of these 2 definitions that makes one of these right and the other one wrong. I'm assuming we've all eliminated 2 of the answers by now.
Bluetooth. I'm going to the Bluetooth. You are going to no, sir.
Let me do this.
Yeah.
Is infrared. Now somebody tell me why. What's included in the Bluetooth definition that's not included in this question?
close proximity,
Keep reading.
within line of sight.
Ha. I don't write these questions. You just got to get used to these types of certification questions where multiple answers could be right. The fact that Bluetooth uses haptic confirmation is correct for sharing data. Both of these use data wirelessly, sharing data wirelessly. But the key difference between IR versus Bluetooth is how they do it, where the line of sight is a key component. And since the question doesn't include line of sight, that makes the IR more correct than the Bluetooth. Look at the definition. IR devices are paired using a code of sharing data wirelessly. So hopefully on your certification exam, maybe they'll put the word code or something in their questions. I don't know. But just get used to that and understand that. Now, they could also, this could be a multiple choice, a multi-answer. So it could be a scenario where IR and Bluetooth are correct. So always read the question and see how many answers they're looking for as well. Anybody know what an NFC is?
Near field communication,
What is tethering?
that's wired, not wireless.
That is all right, last question. We got 7 minutes. We'll do one more question here. Which of the following is an indication of RAM issue? Now, hopefully you studied this in your material, that when there's a RAM issue, there's a certain way that computers and laptops let you know this is a RAM issue and not some other type of issue. Which of these 4 is the answer?
Continuous.
Continuous rebooting.
Continuous rebooting. Let's see. That is correct. How did you know?
Because if it doesn't have enough memory, it'll shut itself down, start over.
What is post beep?
Well, after it's shut down, that's post. Beep is in reference to no power or.
No, post is not after it shuts down.
Okay.
That's not the word you may be thinking of. In fact, it should not be typed like this. It should actually be typed like, oh, I can't type it here for some reason. I'll fix it later. It should be all caps, POST. You know what that stands for?
Power on self-test.
That is correct. When does that occur? When the computer shuts down?
No, at the beginning, it's cut on.
Beginning, bingo. Yeah, so don't let that word post mislead you to think of the word post meaning after.
Okay.
That really should be all capitalized, POST, which is an acronym for power on self-test. And if a computer is having problems, it can boot up, go through the self-diagnostic, and you'll get, there are different types of beeps. And the different beeps tell you different things, actually. So in this scenario, though, because we're talking about RAM, it's a repeated rebooting process. That's the indicator. What about incorrect BIOS time? Has nothing to do with RAM. You could have a wrong BIOS time.
That's the battery.
Yep. How about a sparking capacitor? What is that related to? The BIOS is battery. The capacitor is related to?
Got the word.
What would get replaced? Maybe the power supply. Right? Capacitor, power.
Yeah.
All righty. So we'll pause from that today. We got 2 minutes remaining for any additional comments, questions, anything you guys want to quickly speak about. Any comments, questions? No?
Just a flashback. You know what? My phone died, and I flashed out of the chat. What was the answer to that question? The word haptic. What did haptic mean?
Oh, haptic. What the answer to the actual question was infrared.
Infrared. Haptic. What was the meaning of haptic?
Haptic is the actual process of sharing data wirelessly.
All right.
The key difference was, and it's really a blurry, it's a gray area, it's a really thin line. But in that example, what makes IR more accurate is the fact that Bluetooth is using what we call LOS, line of sight. Meaning in order for Bluetooth to transmit data wirelessly, the device has to be in a good line of sight between the transmitter and the receiver.
Certain range. So the code is more direct and tied in than a personal area space or something like that.
Bingo, you got it.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I think according to what I've been informed, we got another meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock as well. Any special topic, anything we want to go over, or are we comfortable kind of doing what we did today, picking up where we left off?
Yeah, we can pick up where we left off. I'm gonna look in and see some of the areas that I had problems with. Like I'll go back on the Use Certified tonight, and I'll have some questions tomorrow.
Okay, cool, perfect. Do me a favor. Do you guys communicate directly with your director, with the director for the program who set this up, or I don't know how you guys have been communicating. Do you guys?
I mean, we all, yeah, he's
Yeah,
connects through email.
Okay, so do me a favor. Any questions you guys come up with between today and tomorrow, shoot the email to Director Patrick Young. And do me a favor, give him some feedback about today, to let him, if you like it, if you didn't like it, whatever. Don't worry about me, I got thick skin, but give him some feedback so that he knows how today went, because he was only here for a little bit, so that he can have an idea of how he wants things going forward. And I can have an idea about those questions, and I might be able to find good resources for us. So any questions you come up with between now and then, send those to Patrick and have him, ask him to forward it to me.
All right.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.